Hello, welcome back. The title of this lesson is called Variables and Expressions. This is part 1. Very scary sounding title, but I promise by the end of this lesson you will understand what a variable is, what an expression is, and most importantly, why we care, right? A variable is a letter that we have running around in our calculation. So we can use X or we can use Y, we can use R or Q or whatever it is, but when you see a letter running around math, you call it a variable, and that is just a placeholder for something unknown, right? In real life, we're trying to usually figure out the answer or the value of the unknown, because we're trying to calculate something in real life. But here in the beginning, we're not doing that yet. We have to kind of get used to just seeing letters, which we call variables, and also the concept of an expression. So let me write something on the board and we'll just kind of get started and kind of go as we can here. Let's take a look at the expression a plus 5. Now, what does it mean to have an expression in math? The word expression in math, it means calculation. So here, this is a calculation. Why? Because we have some unknown value a. We don't know what it is, but whatever it is, we're just going to add 5 to it. Now a, at this point, I haven't told you what a is. So a can take on any value. We don't know what it is, right? But in real life, down the road, what we're going to be using variables really for is to figure out the answer to problems. So let's say we're shooting a ship to Pluto, right? To a body deep in the solar system, right? And we might write an equation to calculate how long it takes to get there, right? So we might use a variable t for time. So t would be for time. We might solve for the value of t, how many years it might take to get to someplace deep in the solar system like Pluto or Jupiter or whatever, right? We might instead be calculating the power being transmitted out of an antenna, like for a dish or something, and we might use the variable p for power, and we might solve and calculate the value of p for the power that antenna is shooting out into for your communications, right? So you get the idea. We use different letters, and you can kind of use whatever letter you want. In this case, we have the letter A, and I haven't told you what the value of A is, and this expression includes A, whatever it is, and we're adding the number 5 to it. Now, in this case, if I then tell you, I'll put a little semicolon here, that A is equal to 3, what I want you to do is what we call evaluate the expression. Remember, when we say expression in math, it just means calculate something. So here I'm giving you the expression a plus 5, and I want you to calculate or evaluate this expression if I tell you that a is 3. Now in real life, when we write real problems, we don't really know the value of a, like going to Pluto, how long it takes, or the gravity around the black hole, or the temperature inside of a jet engine, or something like this. We're trying to calculate and find those things, but here, before we get to that level, we're just trying to practice with using a variable. So here, if I tell you a is 3, and I tell you the expression is a plus 5, all you really have to do is take the value of this variable in and stick it in this location and calculate. So what you really are going to say is that this is going to be equal to the value of a. We're going to substitute in for 3. We're going to stick it right in here. We're going to say 3 plus 5, and then we're going to say that that's equal to 8, and this is the answer to the question. Because this is not a fully baked problem like we're going to get to down the road. I'm not asking you to calculate, I don't know, the gravity around another planet or something like that. I'm not asking you to do a full-blown problem. I'm just telling you that whatever a is, we're going to add 5 to it. And now that I tell you the value of a, you can then calculate by putting it in there and substituting in, and then you tell me what the answer to this expression is if a is in fact equal to 3. So in this lesson, we're going to get practice with that, and the expressions are going to get a little more complicated with each step, but they're never going to be very, very hard. So let's say you have the expression 4 times x. So as we've said in the past, when you have a number next to a variable, even though there's no multiplication symbol between it, you assume that they're multiplied together. A number times a letter means a number written next to a letter means they are multiplied together, even though there's no dot or multiplication symbol there. So let's say that the expression is 4x, 4 times x, and I'm going to give to you that x is equal to -2. So what you have to do is then take this value of x, and I'm telling you x is equal to, and stick it into this location here. So because they're multiplied together, you could write it like this, 4 multiplied by -2, but you see how this looks kind of weird. They are multiplied because you're putting a dot here. First of all, you have to put something. If if you put -2 there, even though they're written next to each other, it looks like 4 minus 2. That's not right. You could put a dot there showing their multiply, but that doesn't look so clear. It's probably easier to just wrap one of these in parentheses. So I like to go ahead and put parentheses around when there's a negative symbol there, because then it tells me that the -2 is multiplied by 4. Now we've already learned how to multiply and divide and add, subtract integers. And we've already learned order of operations. You should already know that stuff. If you don't know it, then go back to those lessons and refresh your memory. Here, we have +4 times -2. So because the signs are different, the answer is negative, and then 4 times 2 is 8. And so the answer to this expression for x, when x is -2, the answer is equal to -8. All right, moving right along to the next problem. Let's take a look at the expression 5 minus y plus 1, and I'm going to give you that y is equal to 9. That's given to you. And what we want to do is evaluate or calculate this expression here. So it needs to go right into the y position. So you say that that's 5 minus, and then the 9 goes right in there, plus 1. Now you have to use order of operations. There's no multiplication or division, so we don't have to do that. So we do addition and subtraction from left to right. So forget about the 1 for a second. What is 5 minus 9? So we've already done addition and subtraction of negative and positive numbers. Now you see why we have to master that first, because I'm asking you to be able to do this. 5 minus 9, you can think of it as 5 plus a -9 if you want to. And what you're going to do is subtract these numbers. 9 minus 5 is going to be 4, and the sign goes with the larger absolute value. This positive 5 is an absolute value of 5. This as a -9 is a absolute value is larger, and so you subtract the numbers and the sign goes with the larger absolute value. So 5 minus 9 comes out to -4, but we still have to add this 1 to it. All right, so the next step here is to take a look and solve this. -4 plus 1. Again, the signs are different. When we have opposite signs and we're adding them together, we just subtract the numbers. 4 minus 1 is 3, and the sign of the answer goes with the bigger absolute value. -4 has a bigger absolute value, so the sign goes with it, and the answer is -3. If you don't like that, you could just flip it around and write the positive 1 here, -4, and make it 1 minus 4. So 1 minus 4 is the same as -3, and it's also the same as -4 plus 1. Again, I'm kind of not explaining every single thing about adding and subtracting these integers because we've already covered it in great detail. And it's very important that you master adding and subtracting negative numbers and multiplying and dividing negative numbers. If you haven't, then please go back and practice it, because you have to use that skill. It's like walking before you can do anything else. All right, let's take a look at problem number 4. What about -2? And we're going to add to that 20, and then we're going to divide by b. And I'm going to tell you, or give to you, that b is equal to -5. So given that b is equal to -5. So what you do is you stick -5 into this location right here. So we rewrite it, -2 plus 20, and then we divide by, and then since there's a negative sign, you could leave it like this. I guess it's kind of readable, but it's just a little easier if you wrap your negative numbers around with parentheses so that you don't get lost and you don't accidentally overlook the negative sign here. All right, so here we have to calculate the answer. We have to use order of operations. Remember, for order of operations, just a quick review. The very first thing you do is you do any parentheses first, right? And then the next thing you look for is any exponents. We don't have any exponents here. We do have parentheses, but the only thing in there is a number, so there's nothing to do. And then at the third priority level, we multiply and divide from left to right, like this. And in the fourth priority level, we add or subtract from left to right. So we do have parentheses, but there's nothing in there. There's no exponents here. So we have to do any multiplications and divisions first. So we do not do this addition. You do not do this addition first. You must do this division first. So what you're going to have is the -2 stays the same. We have to take 20 and divide it by -5. Remember, positive divided by negative is a negative. And 20 divided by 5 is 4. So write it as 2 plus a -4. So the plus sign comes from here, and now we're doing this here. We get a negative answer. So again, you don't have to put the parentheses. You could just write it as 20 plus a negative 4, I guess, but usually wrapping it in parentheses is a little clearer what you have here. And you could say, if you wanted to, this is negative 2 minus 4. Remember, plus a negative is the same as a minus sign. So if you like to read it like this, is fine. If you like to read it like this, is fine. Either way, when you have a negative plus another negative, the answer is negative. 2 plus 4 is 6. This is like $2 of debt, and I'm adding $4 more of debt, so I have a total of $6 of debt. So the answer is negative 6. It's a simple problem, but also a tricky problem. A lot of students will accidentally add these numbers first and then trying to divide, but that violates order of operations, so you get the wrong answer. So we're using skills from before. We have to understand order of operations. Then we have to also know how to add and subtract, multiply and divide these negative numbers, integers. And we have to put all of that together. All right, next problem. Let's say we have x for the expression x plus 4, and we're going to multiply that by 9. And I'm going to give you that the variable x is equal to 2. So what you do is you stick 2 right into this location, and you say it's 2 plus 4, and we're going to multiply that by 9. Now, order of operations, again, says we do the parentheses first. So we say 2 plus 4, we do that first. That's 6. After we calculate it, we can drop the parentheses. We still have to multiply by 9. And 9 times 6, or 6 times 9, 54 is the answer. Positive, of course. All right, we're halfway home, making good progress, but the expressions will get a touch more complex as we go throughout all of these problems. What about 4 divided by the variable a plus 9? And I'm going to tell you, this is not an a here, this is the number 9, by the way, right here. This number 9 right there. And I'm going to tell you that the variable a is negative 7. So we have to stick it in here. So we have 4 divided by, we have negative 7 plus 9. You could wrap the negative 7 in innermost parentheses, but I think this is pretty readable here. The reason I add it here is because if you put plus minus right next to each other, sometimes you overlook the minus sign. If you put divided negative, sometimes you overlook the negative sign. But I think here, the negative 7 plus 9, it's pretty clear, so I don't think we need to. But you could wrap it in parentheses if you want. Now, order of operations says we have to do what is inside of here first. We cannot do this division first. So it'll be 4 divided by, what do we get when we calculate this? Negative 7 plus 9, they're opposite signs. So what do? We subtract. 7 minus 9 is 2, and the sign goes with the larger absolute value, which is the 9. Basically, when you add or subtract, when you add negative and positive, when the signs are different for the integers and you're adding them together, just subtract the numbers as usual, and the sign of the answer just goes with whichever one is a larger absolute value, so it's positive. And then finally we have 4 divided by 2, which is 2, and these are both positive, so the answer also is positive. All right, let's take a look at problem number 7. Y plus 2y, 2 times y minus 5. Now this is the first one of these expressions where we have the variable in 2 different locations. And this value of y, I'm going to tell you, is equal to positive 8. Now, if you see a variable y in 2 different locations, don't stress out about it. It just means that that variable is involved in 2 different parts of your calculation. But you still put the same value of 8 in both places because y is in both places and the value of y is 8. So we say it's 8 plus 2. Now we have 2 times 8. You have to put some kind of multiplication here to show you can't just put a 2 and an 8 together. That looks like 28. So you have to put a dot there and then minus 5. So you just substitute there. Now what do? You have to work inside the parentheses first. But inside of here you have multiplication and subtraction. You multiply first. 2 times 8 is 16. You still have to subtract that 5. And then you have on the inside of the parentheses, you have to finish the inside first. 16 minus 5 is 11. Now we can drop those parentheses. And 8 plus 11 is 19. Positive 19, and that is the final answer. All right. Only 3 more. What about 4 times x divided by 12 minus 4? And I'm going to give you that the value of x is equal to positive 1. So you stick the value of 1 everywhere you see an x. So here we have 4 This is going to be times 1. You could put a dot in between. I'm going to wrap it in parentheses, do it whichever way you prefer, divided by 12 minus 4. All right, so what we need to do next is inside the parentheses. Here we still have a 4 times a 1, right? But inside, we have to do this first. 12 minus 4 is what? 8. So we have an 8 here. So now we have multiplication, and then we also have division. We do it left to right. So 4 times 1 is 4, and we have to divide by 8. 4 divided by 8. Now you might not know what to do here, but then you realize this is the same as 4 over 8. 4 divided by 8 is 4 eighths like this. And so it's basically a fraction. We can simplify this fraction by dividing the top by 4 and the bottom by 4, and 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. So once we put a value of 1 into this expression, we calculate an answer of 1/2 back. All right, next problem. Let's say we have -2 multiplied by a, then we're adding 10 to it, close that off, and then we're going to divide by a. All right, same thing. I'm going to also give you that a is equal to -10. Now, because you're putting a negative number in here, you might have to put some extra parentheses to make sure it's readable, but that's really up to you. Here on the inside, we have -2 multiplied by a. I could put a dot, -10 like this, but it doesn't look so readable. So what I prefer to do is say it's -2 times 10. Let's see here, -2 times 10, yeah, like this. And that to me is a little bit clearer that they're multiplied together. But if you want to put the dot, you're more than welcome to here. And then we're going to take this outer parentheses off like this. We still have to add 10. I forgot about that. And then we're going to divide by what? By -10. Again, you could put a -10 here, but it just reads a little bit clearer to me to put parentheses around it. So next we look on the inside. We have to do what's inside of these parentheses. Inside we have multiplication and also addition. The multiplying happens first. Negative times negative is positive. 2 times 10 is 20. So it's positive 20. We still have this plus 10 here. So you see, once we do the multiplication here, then we can drop these parentheses here. And we have divide by -10. We still have to work inside of here. 20 plus 10 is 30. Now we can drop the parentheses and divide by -10. Right? Now, positive divided by negative is a negative number always. 30 divided by 10 is 3, and so the answer is -3, and that's the final answer. All right, we have one more. I think we have time for that right here. And the expression here is 2 times y minus y plus 2 multiplied by 3. And I'm going to give you that the value of y is equal to 9. And we have to put this value of y in here. So we have 2 times 9. And then we subtract here. This is 9 plus 2 right here. We just put a 9 in here, multiplied by 3. So we should do what's inside the parentheses first. 9 plus 2 is 11. So it's going to be 11 here. And then it's still multiplied by 3. We can drop the parentheses there. So here we have multiplication and multiplication. Those both have to happen first. So 2 times 9 is 18, and 11 times 3 is 33. We can do them both kind of in parallel and know that we're going to subtract the answers at the end. Now, you have 18 minus 33. If you want, you can think of it as 18 plus a -33. Some people like to think of it like this, and some people don't need to. But basically, you're adding two things that have opposite signs. So what you need to do is essentially subtract the numbers. And when you take 33 and subtract 18, borrow there, make that a 12. 13 minus 8, that's a 5. And then this is a 1 right here. The answer is 15. So what you're going to get when you subtract 33 minus 18 is 15. And the sign of the answer goes with the bigger absolute value, which is negative, because negative 33 is bigger absolute value. So you get -15. So however you want to think about it, if you want to think about it as 18 minus 33, and you have to go deeper negative to get to -15, that's fine. If you want to think of them as adding an opposite, and then you can just think back to the rules of adding integers. When you have different signs that you're adding, just subtract the numbers, and the sign goes with the larger absolute value. So the answer is -15. So here we're combining several skills. First, introduce the idea of an expression. You see, all of these are expressions because they're just calculations. And they're calculations that involve letters, which we call variables. And that scares a lot of students because we're not used to seeing variables and letters running around our calculations. It looks foreign to us. But this lesson is trying to break down those barriers so that you can get used to seeing these letters and just kind of take comfort in knowing that if I tell you that y is equal to 9, all you do is you put the value of 9 in the position for all of the letters, the variables that we have, and then it becomes a regular problem with order of operations. So we're learning about variables, we're learning about expressions, we're learning how to, or remembering how to use order of operations, which you've learned in the past, to calculate the answers, but we also have negative and positive numbers now, so we have to learn and remember how to add and subtract and multiply, divide these negative and positive integers. So it's a lot of skills rolled up into one, and that's why we did a lot of problems. What I want you to do is start at the beginning, solve all of these yourself until you know exactly what to do and until in your mind you know how to get to the answers. If you're not sure how to do some of these subtractions with negative numbers, go back to the lessons on adding and subtracting negative numbers. None of us are born knowing how to do this. We only learn it through practice. So practice these problems. Follow me on to part 2. We'll get a little more practice with variables and expressions.